Moving into our last story of the day. Hit that like and subscribe, folks, if you haven't already. A few of you in the live chat, I think it was on Friday's episode, also in the comment section, basically said, hey, where's the updates on East Palestine, Ohio, the train derailment? Why have you not talked about that, Brad? What's going on? You guys, there's a lot of news out there. I do drop the ball, but we have updates here for you. Ask for it. I shall deliver, my friends. I can't cover everything. Audrey, if you're watching, I get your emails as well regarding the illegal immigration that's going on at the southern border. If you guys send me emails just because I don't respond, I do get them. There's a lot of stuff. I'm a one-man show that goes on behind the scenes. I'm just trying to keep my head above water here to be able to conduct everything myself, whether that's business operations, creating the content, editing the content, replying to you, hanging out with y'all. I love doing it. I'm not complaining by any means. It's just, please forgive me if I don't always get to you guys, but I listen to you, and this is proof right here because I'm giving you an update on cancer-causing chemicals found in East Palestine soil as high as hundreds of times greater than past EPA safety recommendation, folks. You sitting down for this? Because we were told everything's fine. Oh, everything's A-okay, according to Karine Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary, and the knucklehead Joe Biden, who supposedly is running the country, from what I heard. We all know that ain't true. Well, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency said the soil in East Palestine does not contain dangerous levels of a cancer-causing chemical. However, a past scientific recommendation from the EPA contradicts that assertion. Earlier this month, the EPA Regional Administrator, Debra Shore, said there were very low levels of dioxins during a hearing of the U.S. Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works. Quote, we detect very low levels, which very quickly went down to non-detect. Without those primary indicators, it was a very low probability that dioxins would have been created, Shore told Congress. They were secondary byproducts of the burning of vinyl chloride. But we were listening to the community, and they expressed significant concerns about the toxin. Not just the community. I mean, literally the entire United States was going, that doesn't look good. When you have that kind of black smoke coming into the sky and it basically enveloping multiple states around it, yeah, it's probably not a good thing. And also just all the cell phone video was coming out about this. It also tells you where we're at in kind of our day and age, where the amount of gaslighting that takes place is head spinning. Because you have everybody that sit there can go on the internet, upload any video they want. Granted, some could be lies, some could be truth. That's up to you as an individual to decide what is right, what is wrong, what is truth, what is false. But the fact is, we could still see all this stuff and make decisions for ourselves if something is or isn't happening. And then you have these politicians and agencies coming out and saying, oh, no, everything's fine. Not a big deal, folks. Nothing to see here. Just go home. Go back to your homes. You're going to be okay. It's asinine. The EPA waited a month before ordering dioxin testing near the toxic Norfolk Southern train derailment in East Palestine. Yes, folks, you heard me correctly. They waited a month. Oh, God, your eyes are falling out, Janet. Oh, Jesus. Your tongue's no longer connected to your face. Oh, God, why could that happen? Being a little facetious here, folks. Pace Analytical, an independent lab based in Indiana, released a report on whether there were dangerous concentrations of chemicals in soil samples from East Palestine. I would say there might have been. I mean, we literally saw fish floating just dead down the stream. There's people literally throwing rocks that was basically disrupting the soot that was at the bottom of these rivers and ravines. And it was just like, you could see all the chemicals just rising as if there was like an oil spill. It was disgusting. But we were told, oh, the water sample's fine. You could just drink it. Look at the mayor. He's drinking the water. Is that guy even around? Guy alive anymore? The Guardian reported, quote, regulators established the toxicity of dioxins in a soil sample by calculating the toxicity equivalence of all dioxins in the soil compared with the most toxic dioxin compound called 2378 TCDD. East Palestine soil showed levels of 2378 TCDD toxicity equivalents of 700 parts per trillion. You got to hold on to that number here because now we're going to get into some pretty hefty sciencey numbers, as if you want to call it that. So check this out. Since 1998, the EPA determined that dioxin soil concentrations of less than 1,000 parts per trillion. So we just looked at 700 parts per trillion. In 1998, 1,000 parts per trillion were considered safe residential areas, and between 5,000 and 20,000 in commercial and industrial soil. Anything above those levels would trigger a cleanup. However, in 2010, so like 12 years later, the EPA proposed drastic reductions in what concentration of dioxin the agency determined to be safe based on the best available peer-reviewed science. Well, now that one goes with peer-reviewed science. If you haven't seen any of that, there's people that talk about gay dogs. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that goes into peer-reviewed stuff. That's a bunch of nonsense. Well, the concentration of dioxins in the East Palestine soil samples is as much as hundreds of times greater than the threshold from the EPA safety recommendation from 2010. The EPA declared in 2010, based on a consideration of oral and dermal exposures to dioxin, EPA has developed the following draft recommended interim PRGs for dioxin in soil. 72 parts per trillion for residential soil and 950 parts per trillion for governmental industrial soil. Folks, I hope you're sitting down. God, this is so head spinning. So it went from in 1998, 1,000 parts per trillion to 72. And then for commercial and industrial, went from 5,000 to 20,000, all the way down to 950 in 12 years. Then the environmental agency stated EPA believes that these draft recommended PRGs would generally provide adequate protection against non-cancer effects and generally should protect against cancer effects altogether. However, the EPA also considered lowering the threshold far more to protect Americans against cancer and other health issues. Again, if you're just joining us, this has everything to do with the East Palestine train derailment and how basically the soil samples aren't looking good. EPA is considering and requesting comment on an alternative concentration of 3.7 parts per trillion TEQ in residential soil and 17 parts per trillion TEQ in commercial industrial soil as draft preliminary, basically remediation goals. The agency said in a draft recommendation, interim preliminary remediation goals for dioxin in soil. Hell of a title in that one. The EPA proclaimed that the 3.7 parts per trillion concentration would be protective from cancer and non-cancer effects. This is so crazy. EPA Assistant Administrator for Solid Waste and Emergency Response said in 2010, we're driven by the need to protect against excessive risk of both cancer and non-cancer health concerns. We believe the current standards are not sufficiently protective and more stringent numbers are needed. Folks, please don't be alarmed by my laughing. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm laughing because it is so clown show crazy that all I can do is laugh. Or what am I going to do? Scream at you the entire time? I don't think so. The Obama administration killed the proposed decrease in the dioxin threshold at the time. So what's funny here is Trump's being blamed for certain things like the economy, everything that's going on right now that the Biden administration pretty much caused. Example would be Silicon Valley Bank on how they're blaming Trump for removing regulations that would have never stopped the thing in the first place. So it's amazing how Donald Trump's being blamed for something he had nothing to do or with. But Obama literally killed a proposed decrease in dioxin threshold at the time that could possibly actually affecting people greatly in Ohio. Dioxin concentrations that require cleanups are much lower in several states, including 90 parts per trillion in Michigan and only 50 parts per trillion in California. And California is an extremely leftist state, folks. The EPA released a statement regarding the soil samples. Quote, the available data analyzed and validated by an independent laboratory shows that waste from East Palestine that went to Indiana does not contain harmful level dioxins. Linda Birnbaum, a leading dioxin researcher, toxicologist, and former director of the National Institute for Environmental Health Sciences, said the burning of vinyl chloride from the train derailment could have created dioxins. So now we're getting two contradictory kind of statements here. Birnbaum added, the levels are not screaming high, but we have confirmed that dioxins are in East Palestine soil. Isn't that just lovely? Well, you know, we were told that everything was fine, folks. Close up shop, go back home, go on your merry way. Everything's A-okay. Now we're being told, oh, well, there are dioxins in the soil. It's killed your fish and everything. It's in your rivers and water, but don't worry about it. The EPA must test the soil in the area more broadly. Mind you, they didn't get those tests till a month after everything took place. You have an organic chemist at Johns Hopkins University told The Guardian, I certainly wouldn't be comfortable living there. Folks, we do have people that watch the Bald Brad show, and hopefully they are watching today, that literally live in Ohio and the surrounding area. So please write in what you're experiencing right now in the live chat in the comment section below, so our viewers and listeners can sit there, support you, pray for you, and just so we know what the hell is going on as well with boots on the ground there. The EPA warns dioxins are highly toxic. It could cause cancer, reproductive and developmental problems, damage to the immune system, and can interfere with hormones. Folks, I'm giving you a very detailed update here. Yes, you wanted it. I shall give you it, folks. So if we're going a little long today, folks, hopefully you're okay with that, because look, we're getting into the science of it all. Just to follow the science like we had to do for 3 years, you know. You gotta follow the peer-reviewed journals. You gotta listen to Fauci. But this is seriously crazy, man, because it's going to affect your live crop. It's going to affect you and your family, so be careful here. The World Health Organization states that long-term exposure is linked to impairment of the immune system, the developing nervous system, and just reproductive functions. A paper published in Environmental Science Europe, a peer-reviewed scientific journal covering environmental science, warns of the dangers of these dioxins. Well, the good news is here, President Joe Biden has not visited East Palestine since the toxic train derailment happened on February 3rd. More than 2 weeks ago, Biden promised that he would be out there at some point. It took him 2 years to get to the southern border. Still, it's been a month and a half since he's visited this whole thing, this train derailment, the thing. But, you know, hey, the day after SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, goes under, Joe Biden's there the next day. Oh, he's there making sure everything's A-okay. So this is how this president rolls. He doesn't care about you. He will say he cares about you, but he doesn't. Typical politician, typical of the Democrat Party. But hey, you know what, folks? There's a lot of people in East Palestine. There's a lot of people in Ohio in general that vote Democrat. And this is kind of, the reward that they get. I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm not trying to politicize this necessarily. Partially I am, of course. But stop voting Democrat. You'll get a Republican down there that will be hopefully there really quick. You're talking to a Republican right now. There's this whole community that we pretty much have built here on the Bald Brad Show is the Republicans, and we care a lot about it. We had people say, hey, Brad, why is there not an update going on? So we're giving you an update because we care about it.
I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.